Hey, good morning. Patricia Murphy here. It's Saturday. This is Seattle Now. Today we're bringing you important stories from our public radio newsroom colleagues. We'll start with voices in the Lake City neighborhood as the closure of their Fred Meyer draws closer. The closure has prompted community advocates there to raise the alarm that the neighborhood is transforming into a food desert. KNKX reporter Mitch Borden takes us to Lake City.
The loss of Lake City's Fred Meyer will reverberate across the community. Just down the street from the store, people line up for groceries at the North Helpline Food Bank.
Yeah, how many are you shopping for?
5.
5 people. Okay, you can have 6 things here.
Volunteers guide people as they pick what they want off tables lined with fresh produce like carrots and bok choy.
Would you like some citrus? Would you like some plums? You can have 20.
The nonprofit serves a diverse mix of people ranging from immigrant communities, the elderly, and anyone who's struggling. The local Fred Meyer donates about 20,000 pounds of groceries to North Helpline annually. With its closure looming, the group's food access director, Lauren Reed, says the food bank is working to figure out how to meet an increase in demand with less.
Gosh, we're preparing for a lot more visitors. I mean, we've already seen huge numbers skyrocket over the last 6 months. We're seeing the highest levels that we've ever seen. We have between 300 and 500 new families registering with us every month.
According to Reed, the community isn't just losing a grocery store, it's also losing its only pharmacy.
Pharmacy loss is a pretty huge thing that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. There's not a closer pharmacy, so people use the Fred Meyer, so it's going to make it a lot harder for people to have the medications that they need.
The closest full-service grocery store is over a mile away, so locals will have to walk, take a bus, or drive to do their shopping. Lake City does have a smaller supermarket, but Reed says it doesn't compare to Fred Meyer. KNKX reached out to Kroger for this story, Fred Meyer's parent company. They did not respond to an interview request, but in an email, a spokesperson wrote that Lake City's Fred Meyer was not financially viable due to theft and a challenging regulatory environment. 45-year-old Tolly Jones lives in the neighborhood. She says without Fred Meyer, it won't feel the same around here.
Yeah, it will affect me a lot because it's like my go-to for like home goods and stuff like that in the area. That would be the place where I would go. So it's just kind of becoming like a ghost town kind of to me. And just seeing everything, the shelves becoming empty, it's pretty sad.
The Fred Meyer in Lake City is still fairly busy. When I visited, cars were coming in and out of the parking lot all day. And this isn't the only location being closed. Kroger is shuttering at least 4 other stores in the Puget Sound, including in Tacoma and Everett. Northwest Harvest is a major supplier for food banks across the state. The nonprofit's CEO, Thomas Reynolds, says having to go farther for groceries will add up for some people.
When you lose a supermarket, you lose time, you gain costs in terms of fuel, and you also might gain costs in terms of how much you're paying for your food. And so that's going to have a big impact.
The closure of Lake City's Fred Meyer has drawn the attention of city leaders. Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell has proposed initiatives to address food insecurity, like increasing funding for food banks and extending Lake City's farmers market by a few months. Katie Wilson, who's currently running against Harrell in this year's mayoral election, says if she wins, she'll explore the idea of the city subsidizing grocery stores. Still, even if these initiatives are adopted, they wouldn't immediately address the issues residents will face after Fred Meyer shuts down. 65-year-old Donnie Frost lives in Lake City and is worried about his neighbors, especially those with mobility issues.
A lot of people depend on it around here, and a lot of people can't get up to Safeway or QFC. People in chairs, and, it's going to be winter time. They got to be rolling around here waiting on the bus, and it's going to be hard on a lot of people.
Lake City's Fred Meyer is slated to close in mid-October, and according to Kroger, every employee will be offered a position at another one of its stores. I'm Mitch Borden, reporting.
Now to Central Washington, where immigration policies are affecting local farms. Farm workers say they're losing hours and losing ground. Northwest Public Broadcasting's Johanna Bejarano and Renee Diaz have this story.
In Central Washington, feelings of fear and uncertainty are growing along with apples, pears, and hops. Many local farm workers say they're stuck in between immigration enforcement threats and the expansion of the H-2A program, which brings in temporary foreign labor. We talked to 3 of them in Spanish and are translating. were using just their first names, and one changed theirs for safety reasons. Giovanni says the workers are talking about their fears.
Un compañero que casi ya no sale a como salía antes. Vive en el rancho y a veces me pide favor. Tráigame un 40 de aguas, tráigame tortillas, tráigame sodas.
He says a coworker is not going out like before. He asks him to get groceries instead of going by himself to the store. He's scared to leave his house. Chaucho is another local worker who moves across the country following harvest.
Gracias a Dios ahí andamos, no hemos visto ni algún paro.
He says he and his coworkers haven't been stopped by ICE.
Farm workers tell us they're ready to work, but nobody hires them. Like Enrique, who says he's filled out many applications, but there's been no calls.
Y por eso decidimos mejor salir del estado a ir a buscar otros lados, porque es más fácil agarrar trabajo en otros lados que aquí en Sunnyside, en Yakima, todo esto.
He says he's looking for work in other states. Giovanni says his workplace has over 100 H2A workers who move to other farms as needed. He says there are only 8 local workers there.
Alex Lanusa is a farmer who says he understands both the farm workers and growers' points of view.
Locals and migrants, everybody's worried. That has to do with some people not even driving up here because they're afraid they'll get pulled over from California to Washington and they'll get sent back to Mexico.
He says there isn't enough help.
There's days that I pick 200 bins, and there's been days that I only pick 18. That's how it is. The crews don't show up.
Farmer Troy Phillips is concerned about high labor costs. He spoke at a listening session with federal lawmakers last month. He says hiring H2A workers is a necessity.
It's the only way to get the job done because we don't have domestic labor force willing to take on the work.
Bertha Clayton is with the Washington State Employment Security Department.
Farm workers look for work by going from farm to farm or from talking to a relative or a friend. It's very relationship-based.
Her office's Advisory Committee on Workforce recognizes the need to improve recruitment of local workers.
We need to really mitigate the barriers that our system and our regulations require us to have.
Giovanni says local and H2A workers get along, but says there are signs of underlying tensions. Giovanni heard a H2A worker threaten to call immigration on another because of his status. Here's Chaucho again.
No venimos a ganarse la vida, pues, para mantener la familia y todo lo que uno desea, ¿no? Para vivir una vida mejor, ¿no?
He says he doesn't come here to get rich. He comes to support his family and have what they need to live a better life. I'm Johanna Bejarano.
And I'm Renee Diaz.
And finally, a story about Washington's wine industry. It's wine harvesting season across the country, when winemakers usually pick their grapes and start crushing them. But with the market sluggish in the last few years, many in the industry say they're so backed up with unsold wine, they're dropping grapes to the ground or not harvesting them at all. As Northwest Public Broadcasting's Anna King reports, some say it's the worst year the wine industry's seen in decades.
Red Mountain in Washington is among the state's premier wine-growing spots. Sarah Goodhart watches as a hulking mechanical harvester straddles a row of grapes at her family's vineyard, Hedges Family Estate. It rattles the vines from both sides, and all her hard work drops onto a conveyor belt and then gets dumped on the ground.
It's wine that's never going to be made, and for a vintage as good as we're having this year, it's pretty painful.
Goodhart is the top winemaker here and has been through almost 24 harvests. But this is the first year she's thrown fruit away. That's because her cellar is stuffed to the rafters with barrels of the previous 2 years of wine that haven't sold.
It's pretty typical to have the previous vintage in barrel during harvest, but not 2 vintages in barrels.
They're harvesting half of their grapes and dropping half. If they leave the fruit on the vine, she says the plants could be at risk for fungus and diseases. Goodhart says they want to make sure the vines stay healthy so they can keep producing wine if the market comes back.
What everyone is saying in the industry is we're at the low of the low and it's going to get better and we're going to readjust.
The hedges sales last year were down 13% from the year before, and they've cut about that in expenses and staff to keep solvent. Now her family is having to dip into personal assets. This isn't just happening in Washington.
Today, the California wine industry is facing one of the most serious downturns that we've seen in decades, and it's not really because of one singular issue. It is a combination of challenges all hitting at once.
Natalie Collins is the president of the California Association of Wine Grape Growers based in Sacramento. She says the uncertainty of tariffs is causing uncertainty in the markets for one, and retaliatory measures from other countries have hit exports hard. But also, over the past few years, she says global demand for wine has declined. In part, that's due to competition from other beverages like beers, ciders, seltzers, cocktails, NA drinks, and cannabis products, and increasing concerns about the health risks of drinking.
We're seeing new generations not drinking as much alcohol as past generations have.
She says that's led to an oversupply of wine globally. Some places are ripping out their vineyards or abandoning them. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, Chris King with the New York State Wine Grape Growers says he knows several vineyards that are very near to going out of business.
It's your neighbors. You feel their hardship, you feel their pain, and to see somebody who has put their life and their fortune and their dreams into this business and have it go away is just really sad to watch.
While right now the impact of the grape glut is mostly being felt by those in the wine industry, some think that eventually it could impact consumers. Adam Schultz runs the Incredible Bulk Wine Company in Washington State, which makes matches between winemakers and companies looking for bulk wine or wine grapes.
So at some point we're going to cross the threshold where there isn't enough bulk wine inventory, there aren't enough grapes in the ground.
He says that as more vineyards scale back, eventually the industry might resize so small that years from now, we might be looking at a wine shortage. I'm Anna King on Red Mountain in Washington State.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now, and thank you to our financial supporters. Our production team includes Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Andy Hurst, Vaughn Jones, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.